I actually don't know the title for this video, but let's talk about Boruto chapter 25 or 26 in the future. And I don't know how many times we've talked about code, but so far, there has been no confirmation about code itself after several chapters have passed. Its fate is really very unfortunate. However, there are some parts in this chapter that I think are quite interesting for us to discuss. Initially, we already suspected that the Konoha invasion part 2 would happen, especially with some future prophecies that were automatically updated before Kawaki vs. Jura arc. Momoshiki coming to Konoha and also Himawari's expression of anxiety or fear showed a threat. But something unexpected, and maybe this also needs to be considered, is the tree that traps the body of each shinobi. Because actually, the base of the tree is a claw grime or tsumeaka, and we know that each tsumeaka has a claw mark that allows each divine tree man, like Jura and others, to move through the claw marks on the tsumeka's body, right? Well, what I mean is the claw grime that bites a shinobi and turns into a tree. I once wondered and tried to find out whether the claw mark automatically disappears when the claw grime becomes a tree, or if the mark actually still remains. Because if it's supposed to still exist even after the claw grime turns into a tree, then it's very possible and makes perfect sense that each divine tree human could also enter or exit from the tree itself. And of course, this also becomes a speculation and analysis that Mogi's rescue might fail because of a surprise attack from another divine tree human who suddenly emerges from the tree and ruins everything. But unfortunately, didn't turn out the way we thought, guys. But if in fact, the claw grime, after biting the shinobi and becoming a tree, do their claw marks automatically disappear? This is honestly what I'm curious about. But as usual, chapter 25 has many cliffhangers and will likely be continued in chapter 26 or even further. First, what decision will the Konoha elders make? Because we know that since Boruto's interrogation arc, the Konoha elders seem to no longer be able to rely on Shikamaru as Hokage, since he tends to underestimate Boruto's presence, someone who often comes and goes from Konoha. The hanging point in this chapter is when Sai tells Shikamaru that the Konoha elders called him. If the Konoha elders truly had rational and reasonable thinking, then Boruto's existence should no longer be considered such a big issue. With Mogi's rescue, along with other shinobi like Konohamaru, Sarada, and Himawari, this should actually serve as a major consideration to trust Boruto's words, meaning the Konoha elders should be able to reconsider, or at least make a decision that doesn't end up harming Boruto himself. But in the end, if the existence of omnipotence has such a strong influence on certain people, the Boruto storyline will split into two factions. And somehow this really resembles Attack on Titan. You know, Paradise and Marley, two groups that despise each other based on history and ideology. And the Boruto series, if it's finally going to be a reality, there's nothing impossible either than in the Boruto world will be divided into people who believe in Boruto, and of course, with those who don't believe in him. But what do you think, guys? And in the second cliffhanger, what does Ida mean? After Sarada admitted that she also likes Boruto, Ida showed an expression that wasn't very pleasant. But based on a woman's nature itself, Ida's reaction seems to have two possibilities. First, Ida was simply upset that she wasn't involved and that they were talking about something important without her knowing. Because believe it or not, women can be very complex. Still, I admire how Ikemoto represents Ida's personality. There are no deeper feelings. It's just that kind of women's circle where if there's an exciting conversation and someone isn't included, then that person will naturally get annoyed. However, from that possibility, for some reason I suspect that Ida might actually have the same feelings as Sumire and Sarada. Instead of being upset about being left out of a girl-to-girl conversation, Ida might actually be upset because more and more girls are starting to like Boruto. And why do I speculate that Ida might have feelings for Boruto? Of course, this goes back to chapter 8, when Ida saw Boruto's aura looking so cool during the Mitsuki vs. Boruto arc. But what do you guys think? Could it be possible that Ida actually likes Boruto? And what exactly does Ida want when she asks the sensory team to connect her? Then the one that is not only hanging but forgotten is Yodo. I know that for some people this character is not very important or something, but in my opinion, this Yodo character has an important role, because thanks to her, Sarada finally knows who she is and what she has to do. And of course, thanks to her, Sarada finally awakens her power. But based on Yodo's own abilities, It seems that this character has a very important point to support other characters to awaken their powers, especially Shinki himself. Because if you look at the flashback of the Battle of Ryu and other shinobi, in the flashback it explains that Araya asks Shinki to at least give her attention to Yodo, because of course Yodo herself seems to have more feelings for Shinki himself. But if we go back to chapter 25, unfortunately, Ikemoto only reveals directly without showing how the process of saving Shinki or Gaara, but immediately shows how in the end Gaara survived and Shiki also returned. Yeah, Gaara and Shinki who have returned to Sunagakure village, while Yodo is not even explained how the next news, is it really dead or just dying? This is what makes hanging and curious. And the most very hanging in chapter 25 is Momoshiki's decision. Agree and accept Boruto's compensation or vice versa. But outside of the concept of the Boruto universe, somehow this is just a coincidence, or this is already in the setting. Because if you observe chapter 25, there is a concept that is the same as the previous chapter 15. And as we know, at that time Boruto told Kawaki that Amado had placed a limiter on his body to restrict his power and give him a greater chance of avoiding death when fighting against stronger enemies. But it was Boruto who revealed that secret, who then offered to cooperate with Kawaki to defeat Jura after he obtained his true power. What I mean is, both chapter 25 and chapter 15 share one key point: Boruto asking for help to defeat Jura. Moreover, in chapter 15, Boruto not only asked Kawaki to help him, but also gave Kawaki an advantage through important information to strengthen his power. Boruto even went as far as allowing Kawaki to kill him if there was ever a chance that Momoshiki might take over his body. And of course, with that information and offer, Kawaki immediately agreed. Because with those advantages, for Kawaki, this became a huge opportunity to ensure he could eliminate everyone who threatened Naruto Uzumaki's safety, including Momoshiki inside Boruto's body, and even Jura himself. Well, in chapter 25, it's the same. Boruto came up not only with an offer that benefited himself, but also offered his body to Momoshiki after he defeated Jura. If you follow the sequence or similarities in chapter 15, then most likely Momoshiki will agree to help Boruto. Or even if Momoshiki here refuses, we will still see Boruto get power assistance from him. Either way. And to prove this happens, then there must and should be a trigger point where Boruto will be in big trouble that is caused first, or at least that threatens his life. But what do you think, guys? Is this just a coincidence, or is it already conceptualized? If the fact will be the same, then certainly Momoshiki will accept the offer. But most importantly, I will not conclude that Boruto will give his body in the end or not. So in the end, I'm pretty sure that Momoshiki will accept Boruto's offer in exchange for his body if Momoshiki helps defeat Jura. But I'm not so sure that Boruto will give his body, because Boruto is Sasuke, both of them are not so stupid. Yeah, you know what I mean? But since Boruto series is the opposite of Naruto itself, will Boruto use Sasuke's way? Let's see. So yeah, thanks for watching, like and subs. I'm Nim without E. See you in the next video. Bye bye, Databayo.